Ciao a tutte e a tutti. I wanted to record a brief review of Capitolo 6 to help you prepare with the upcoming exam, the upcoming test. We began as usual with Strategie di Comunicazione, which is a section that, as you know, introduces expressions and other structures that help you achieve certain common communicative tasks. The grammar of these sections usually is more complicated than we would be able to get into, but the expressions are common and therefore they are introduced sort of as fixed expressions that you can just learn and use without necessarily understanding the complicated grammar behind them. In this case, we first began with an expression that helps you make a polite request. The expression mi puoi in the informal, mi può in the formal. As you can see in these two examples in the textbook, mi puoi dire a che ora arriva l'autobus, or the formal equivalent, mi può dire, mi puoi and mi può. For example, if you were on the street in Italy, you might ask somebody what time it is. To tell you what time it is, you could say, mi puoi dire che ora è? Or in the formal, mi può dire che ora è? So the only thing that changes is this puoi, the second person, the to form, and può, the third person, the lei form. So you would ask to ask someone to tell you what time it is, you would use either these expressions depending on the context. It is often preceded by, if you're trying to get someone's attention, you already learned this, scusa or scusi. In the informal, it's scusa, scusa. Mi puoi dire che ora è? Or in the formal, scusi. Mi può dire che ora è? So remember that scusa is the informal, the to form, while scusi is the formal. Students tend to confuse these because they have heard scusi more often in films, for example. So it's as simple as that. Scusa, mi puoi, scusi, mi può. And as you can see, it is often, or it is usually, followed with a verb in the infinitive, with an action. Can you tell me, mi puoi dire? Can you tell me in the formal, mi può dire? A common reply if you are asking someone to give you or to show you something would be to use the adverb ecco plus a pronoun that refers to the thing you have asked for. So it would be one of these four pronouns: eccolo, eccolo, eccola, eccoli, eccole. Okay, these you don't really need to worry about these. These are direct object pronouns, which we will learn much later. The only thing to know is that they refer to the thing you have asked for, and they agree with it in gender and number. So as you can see, eccolo would be if the thing is masculine singular. Eccola if it is feminine singular. I don't know why it's making that into a link. Eccola if it is feminine singular. Stop making them links. Eccoli if it's masculine plural. And eccole if it's feminine plural. Okay, so eccolo, eccola, eccoli, eccole. So for example, imagine that you are at the dinner table and you want someone sitting across from you or next to you to pass you. Why does it insist in making this link? So you would, for example, if you're asking someone to pass you the salt, scusa, mi puoi passare il sale? Scusa, mi puoi passare il sale? Then the person might answer, certo, of course, certo, eccolo. And it's eccolo because il sale is masculine, um, masculine singular, and therefore you need the masculine singular pronoun. Eccolo, il sale refers back to il sale. So again, pretty simple di strategia. Scusa, mi puoi for informal. Scusi, mi può for formal. And then this useful expression, eccolo, eccola, eccoli, eccole, in cases where you are asking someone to give you something or to show you something. And it basically just means here it is or here they are. Let's see. Here it is. Here they are. And this keeps wanting to be a link. Okay, so yes, here it is. Pretty simple. Then the second strategia that you're learning here is asking for permission. And this is very simple as well, with the same verb actually, the verb to be able to, potere. So we have, you can say posso. For example, a very useful expression in the classroom would be posso andare in bagno? So this could be can or may. Can I go to the bathroom? Or to the restroom, sorry. Posso andare in bagno? Again, we have, it's the same verb as puoi and può. It's the first person, the io form. And again, it's accompanied by a verb in the infinitive, so it expresses an action. Posso andare in bagno? And if it's in the classroom and the professor asks you to use a formal, then you would say, I don't know, scusi. Or if it's an informal context, you can just use scusa. So informal, scusa, or scusi if it's formal. You might say, scusi professore, posso andare in bagno? Or if the professor has given you permission to use informal, then you can just say, scusa professore, posso andare in bagno? And that's about it. As I said, you use it usually with an infinitive. So let's remind ourselves of that here. Mi puoi, or mi può plus infinitive. Okay. Let's see. Mi può plus infinitive. This is probably better in all caps to help you navigate. This into bold. Oops. Strategia di comunicazione. Mi può plus infinitive. Put this here. The examples. Eccolo, eccola. And then the second example, yes, with mi puoi passare il sale? Scusa, posso. The next one is posso. And another here, actually, you can use posso just by itself to ask for permission. For example, if you are, I don't know, if you are in Rome and you want to sit next to someone, you want to be polite, you may just say to the person, posso, and they would understand that you mean, can I sit there? And they would tell you yes or no. So posso, where the action is implicit. Mi può. Posso. Where the action is implicit, so you, the person, depending on the context, would already know. Or for example, when someone's sitting in the outer seat and you want to sit in the window seat, you would also just say posso, and they would understand that they need to let you in so you can sit. And that's it. Very simple strategia in this case. Now we can move on to lessico. Lessico. So the vocabulary section for this capitolo is clothing, reviewing the colors, and parts of the body. So this is the vocabulary. Again, there's nothing super complicated except when it comes to the body parts. I remind you that when you are working through the material, you should always begin by doing the reading and taking advantage of the digital textbook, which includes recordings of vocabulary to help you with pronunciation. So you would use this as you're going through it. You play, you listen, and you repeat to work on your pronunciation. Since this is an asynchronous course, so take every opportunity, take every resource to work on your oral skills. Nothing really really tricky about it. Let's see. Of course, they are giving in the plural, as an example of gli occhiali da sole, gli occhiali, when the item is plural. I tacchi alti, high heel shoes, gli stivaletti, boots, le scarpe, for normal shoes, or le scarpe da ginnastica, for tennis shoes, i jeans, of course, I calzini. One tricky one might be gli infradito, which looks like a singular, but it's plural. So for flip-flops, gli infradito, it's a plural, even though it looks like it has a singular ending. Il costume, so gli infradito. La scarpa, le scarpe. Il calzino, i calzini, lo stivaletto, just giving you the singulars, gli stivaletti. Although again, in usage, you would most often just use the plural. La collana, gli orecchini, another plural. So l'orecchino, gli orecchini. Gli orecchini. This you might use in the singular most often. La scarpa o l'orecchino. Oh, and then il costume da bagno. So this is given in the plural in the textbook, but you would, of course, use it most commonly in the singular. Il costume da bagno. So il costume, it's an noun. And as in the case of occhiali, you can just say gli occhiali, which are just normal glasses, or gli occhiali da sole. So this preposition da tells you, specifies what they are used for. So we have il costume, which could be a costume, but if you say il costume da bagno, then it becomes a swimsuit. And again, you can say gli occhiali, which refers to regular glasses, or if you say gli occhiali da sole, they become sunglasses. Literally, sole means sun, so it would be like glasses for the sun, sunglasses. So nothing, really nothing complicated about that. Careful as you're practicing spelling for double consonants. Camicetta with a double T, stivaletti with double T, tacchi with double C, ginnastica with double N, giubbotto double B, double T, cravatta double T. So that helps you. You remember you need to be able to spell items in the plural. So you have maglietta double T, cappello double P and double L, berretto double R and double T, collana double L, orecchini double C, anello double L, gioielleria double L. Review the colors which were already introduced in Capitolo 2. Azzurro, blu, nero, bianco, grigio, giallo, rosso, verde, marrone. In this case, review I colori. Review I colori, which of course when describing clothing would be very useful, in which case they function as adjectives. So for example, azzurro, we have the O colors. Divide them into categories, colors in E and in variable. Colors that are in variable colors. So under this category, of course, we would put azzurro, nero, bianco, grigio, giallo, rosso, and that's it. And then for adjectives in E, you would put, of course, verde and marrone. For invariable colors, we don't have any examples here, although marrone could be. But we have, for example, pink, rosa, or we have viola, purple, rosa, viola, or of course beige. These are three examples, and we'll see why it's important. So the first category, the colors in O, will, of course, function in as adjectives to describe clothing. Will function like adjectives, and therefore will agree in gender and number with the noun which they describe. And so they will have 4 possible endings. We remember they can end with O, O, A, E, and E, depending on whether it is masculine singular with O, feminine singular with A, masculine plural with E, feminine plural with E. So it could be azzurro, azzurra, azzurri, azzurre. Scusate, azzurri, azzurre. Nero, nera, neri, nere. Bianco, bianca. It changes in the plural. So bianco, bianca, bianco, bianca, bianchi, which is spelled with H, bianchi, and the plural as well, bianche. So bianchi and bianche are spelled with the addition of the H to maintain the hard sound of the C. So bianchi, bianche. Then the rest are pretty straightforward. Grigio, grigia, grigi with just one E, grigie. Giallo, gialla, gialli, gialle, rosso, rossa, rossi, rosse. And for give you just an example, we have the camicetta here, la camicetta bianca, of course its feminines would be bianca, or we have the minigonna, la minigonna rossa. Okay. One more example, gli stivaletti, the stivaletti again, they're masculine plurals are rossi, and le scarpe da ginnastica, feminine plural, le scarpe da ginnastica, they're white, so bianche because they are feminine plural. And colors in E, of course, function as adjectives in E, which means there are only 2 endings. Let's see. So we have E for the singular and E for the plural. So we will have verde, verdi, verde singular, verdi plural, doesn't matter if it's masculine or feminine. Marrone singular, marroni plural. Again, doesn't matter, the gender doesn't matter. So let's see, we have la giacca, which is singular, feminine, but gender doesn't matter, so it should be la giacca verde. Giacca verde. Or, for example, pantaloni, I pantaloni, that's pants. I pantaloni marroni, it's plural, so marroni. And marroni, again, I put it in, then we get to the third category, of course, which are invariable, which means that they don't change, the form doesn't change at all. And marrone is an example of a color that doesn't have a fixed form, in the sense that sometimes it agrees in numbers, sometimes it doesn't. So it fits into either category, and you won't be incorrect whether you do the agreement or if you treat it as invariable, it doesn't change. So for example, if you could say I pantaloni marrone, that is also correct, because this is a color where there's oscillation between making it agree and leaving it as invariable. But these are examples, and I skipped my favorite, blue, the color blue. So it's invariable. So in this case, for example, this mannequin has I pantaloni blu. Il cappello here, il cappello rosa, I think it's pink, right? And viola, la borsa viola. And I don't think we have anything beige, maybe le scarpe beige. So yes, these colors are invariable, which means they don't change. It's always rosa, whether it's singular or plural, always viola, singular, plural, always blue, whether it's singular or plural. So again, 3 types of adjectives. Colors in O will have 4 forms, O, A, I, E. Colors in E will have 2 forms, E or I. And then these that are invariable, which don't change form. And of course, colors being very useful to describe clothing. Other than that, I don't really think there's... yes, we have 2 verbs for to wear. We have portare, which also means to bring. Portare or indossare. So both ARE verbs, porto, porti, porta, portiamo, portate, portano, indosso, indossi, indossa, and so on and so forth. And then we have the word il vestito, which has a variety of meanings. Il vestito. And the plural I vestiti. Il vestito could mean dress or suit, and I vestiti can mean dresses or suits or clothing more generally. And we have several words that for which the English equivalent is used. Modern Italian likes to use a lot of English. So, for example, instead of la maglietta, you could say la t-shirt. Instead of il maglione, il pullover. Instead of l'impermeabile, which is a trench, il trench, or I'm forgetting the other word in English. And I pantaloncini for, you can say, gli shorts. Then we have il cardigan, jeans, leggings that don't have Italian equivalents, but these are pretty common terms in English that are used often in place of the Italian. And then we get to, the first part of Lessico is devoted to I vestiti, clothing. And we can say also I colori. I vestiti, I colori, and the third section is devoted to the parts of the body. Le parti del corpo. You already know from Capitolo 2, gli occhi, l'occhio, gli occhi, for your eye or eyes. We know, of course, capelli, I capelli, not to be confused with two-piece hat. Where is it? Oh, it's somewhere here. il cappello. You see that there's double P, makes a difference. If you're saying I capelli with double P would be the hats. If you're saying I capelli with single P would be hair. I capelli is rare to use the plural, so we'll just leave it at the... It's rare to use the singular, so we'll leave it at the plural. Gli occhi, I capelli, and la pancia, stomach, la pancia. And this we're introducing in Capitolo 2. And then we have here the rest of the body parts. Again, take advantage of the recordings. And the recording here for this one is incorrect. It should be la bocca. It has braccio, the recording for braccio, la bocca. So these are all pretty straightforward. So go through all of these and pay attention to spelling, double consonants, ginocchio, 2 C's, braccio, 2 C's, labbra, 2 B's, bocca, 2 C's, orecchio, 2 C's, faccia, 2 C's. So pay attention to spelling, double consonants especially. Nothing difficult about these except for there are several that have irregular plurals, and those are listed. They are in a list here which includes both regular plurals and irregular plurals. So le braccia, the singular is il braccio, le braccia in the plural. So notice that the ending changes, il braccio, but plural is le braccia, so it becomes feminine. It looks like feminine, le braccia. Feminine plural, even though the ending doesn't change to the plural. And these all come from the Latin neutral gender. So the Latin neutral gender would have words ending in in the singular and a in the plural. So that's where those come from. Il braccio, le braccia, il dito, le dita, la gamba, le gambe is regular, il ginocchio, le ginocchia, il labbro, le labbra, this one is feminine, la mano, even though it looks masculine, la mano, plurale, le mani, it remains feminine, although the ending looks masculine. La mano, le mani. We already saw l'occhio and gli occhi, it's regular. L'orecchio. Le orecchie. Although in this case, gli orecchi, it's also used. It's not incorrect. And il piedi, it's regular. La spalla, le spalle, it's regular. And that's it. So these are, we call these irregular plurals. Or let's just leave it at irregulars. Words from Latin, mostly. And I think that's about it for body parts. Or, I don't know if this is introduced, but one the students always find funny is il dito. So this is il dito, le dita is fingers. We also have il dito, le dita del piede, which are foot fingers, or obviously toes. Okay. In these expressions that use body parts, we have another body part introduced. Alzare il gomito, to raise your elbow. which of course means to drink, and it makes sense, right? Alzare il gomito. And that's it for lessico, for vocabulary. And let's move on to grammar, to strutture. We have first strutture 6.1, which is the progressive. And this is formed with the verb stare, plus gerund. The gerund in Italian ends in ando and endo, and we'll look at it here briefly. Before actually going into it, let me just remind you, so in Italian, this verbal form is not used as much as in English. So, for example, to arrive, sto arrivando. Sto arrivando literally means I am arriving, but idiomatically it means I'm almost there. Like idiomatically, because it makes it confusing. So I am arriving, sto arrivando. This, you could express this just the same idea with just the present, the regular present. Arrivo, I am arriving or I am coming. So of course we know that arrivo means I arrive in the present tense, but it could also mean I am arriving. So in Italian, you don't actually use this form very often. You use it for emphasis. For emphasis, you would use this most often, arrivo. This one is for emphasis. Sto arrivando. Okay, so you'd be tempted to want to use this all the time, but it is not used very commonly. You can always substitute it with just a regular present. How to form it? It's pretty straightforward. You just use the verb stare plus the gerund, and stare, just to remind you, sto, stai, sta, irregular verbs, stiamo, state, and stanno. So that's how you form, so you have stare, and then the gerund. The gerund is formed for, I'll put it in a separate column. For ARE verbs, it will end in ando. And for ERE and IRE verbs, it will end in endo. Okay, so let's get to the corresponding chapter. So we have already seen. So another, let's see, an example would be stanno guardando la vetrina, so guardare, guardare, guardare. The gerund would be guardando. So you take out the are and you add the ando. Guardare, guardando. And then, for example, leggere, leggendo. Again, take out the ere and add endo, leggendo. And then, for example, dormire, dormendo. Take out the ire and add the endo, dormendo. So again, you combine these with the appropriate form of stare. Sto guardando il video, sto guardando il video, sto leggendo il libro, sto dormendo. You combine it with stare to form the progressive form. Sto guardando, sto leggendo, sto dormendo. And this form, again, I said already, is for emphasis. For emphasis. And you are emphasizing, that the action is in progress. At that very moment. And so, obviously, that's why it's called present progressive. So again, this is used for emphasis. For emphasis. And so keep this in mind because, as I said, in Italian, in spoken Italian, most commonly, you will use just the regular present tense. So, guardo il video could also mean I am watching the video. Leggo, I am reading. I read or I am reading. And then dormo could mean I sleep or I am sleeping. The regular present often substitutes the progressive without emphasis. So again, they can express the same idea, but the gerund is used for emphasis. And yeah, that's about it. It's a pretty simple structure. Let's move on then to one more thing. So gerunds are ando and endo. Ando for verbs in are, endo for verbs in ere and ire, but we have two irregulars. We have fare, which is not fando, but facendo. We have bere, to drink, bere. It's already been introduced. Bere. Bevendo. And it's not in here, but I think you already know it. You have the verb dire. Dicendo. Okay? So these have irregular gerunds, facendo, bevendo, dicendo. And that's really it for the present progressive. Let's move on to strutture 6.2, reflexive verbs. This is probably the most difficult topic covered in this, or certainly this is the most difficult topic covered in this chapter, this capitolo. So, we're talking about reflexive verbs. As you can see from the examples, most evident in this case, mi lavo, mi trucco, mi metto le lenti a contatto, mi vesto, and mi lavo I denti. Reflexives express an action that the subject performs on itself. Okay, so the actions that the subject performs on itself in grammatical terms, so that the person performs on themselves in more common terms. So, for example, mi lavo. Mi lavo. In this case, she's washing her face. Mi lavo la faccia. Mi lavo la faccia. Her face. In English, we say, I wash my face. So in English, we just use our normal verb to wash, I wash. And to convey the idea that you're performing it on itself, you use the possessive my, I wash my face. In Italian, instead, we have a special verb form, or also in other Romance languages, mi lavo, which is a reflexive, this pronoun, which refers to the same subject who is doing the washing. I wash myself. The face would be the literal translation. And notice how in Italian, because the pronoun already refers to the subject, we don't use the possessive. We say, I wash myself the face. Not, you don't say my face, because the me already indicates that you're talking about yourself. Mi lavo la faccia. So these are two reflexives, and those include truccarsi, lavarsi, mettersi, vestirsi, mettersi, so truccarsi to put on makeup, lavarsi to wash, already have truccarsi, no, sorry, we don't need it twice. Truccarsi to put on makeup, mettersi, well, we have radersi as well, to shave. We have the verbs mettersi and vestirsi, which have similar but different distinct meanings. Mettersi, to put on, and vestirsi, to get dressed. The difference between these two is that you would say, you can say the article, you would say the article, or the accessory, the article of clothing or the accessory. Whereas with vestirsi, it's not followed by anything, to get dressed. It's a common mistake. The students want to use vestirsi with an article of clothing or with an accessory. But if you want to say put on, mettersi, to get dressed, vestirsi. And let's see, I think those are it for the true reflexives. I guess we will put svegliarsi to wake up and alzarsi to get up. I like to categorize them into three groups. True reflexives, which are the ones that I've just listed. And then we have these which are kind of ambiguous. And then we have reflexives only in form, which are verbs that are reflexive in the form even though they don't express an action that you perform on yourself. And those include these verbs right here. So reflexive only in form include, let's see, to make it a bit clearer. No, that doesn't help. So we'll just keep that here. I'll underline it. True reflexives, these that are kind of ambiguous, and then reflexives only in form, and those include these: annoiarsi, arrabbiarsi, divertirsi, very important verb to have fun, sbagliarsi, sentirsi. And these are equivalent to in English to get, as you can see, for the most part, to get. So any verb that in English is to get something, in Italian it will be reflexive. Although as you can see, not all the examples are to get bored, to get angry, to have fun, divertirsi is a particular one. So yeah, any to get verb in English will be reflexive in Italian, although not all reflexive in Italian are to get verbs, as you can see from this list. Divertirsi, a very important verb to have fun. In annoiarsi, students always think, oh, it sounds like annoying, to get annoyed, but it's to get bored. And if you wanted to know what the verb for to get annoyed would be, it's also reflexive in the form. Infastidirsi. Oops, infastidirsi. That is not super common. Okay, so basically we have two reflexives, the action of the, put in parentheses, actions that the subject performs on itself, actions that a person performs on themselves, and those include the ones that I listed here. These were, to wake up, you're not really performing an action, but it's happening to you. And alzarsi, again, you're not really performing an action, although you're the one doing the action to get up. And again, it's a to get verb. And svegliarsi, to wake up. Now, the form, how to conjugate them. So as you can see already, these they always end in C. The infinitive ends in C. So it'll end in arsi, ersi, and irsi. So we have the examples lavarsi, mettersi, vestirsi, true reflexives. The conjugation, you will use the pronouns mi, ti, si for the conjugation. They are conjugated like normal verbs. Normal are, ere, ire verbs, but they are preceded by a reflexive pronouns, which are these particles mi, ti, si, ci, vi, si. So mi, mi for io, ti for tu, si for lei and lui, ci for noi, vi for voi, and si for loro. And to conjugate the examples, lavarsi, so this is really the verb lavare plus the pronoun si, which is lavarsi. So these verbs exist in reflexive as well as non-reflexive form, and we'll get there in a second. But for now, let's focus on the form. Lavare plisi, so you can see it's an A-R-E, so the conjugation would be lavare, lavo, lavi, lava, laviamo, lavate, lavano. So it's conjugated like a regular verb, but because it's reflexive, the C tells us it's reflexive, then we have to precede it by the pronoun. Mi lavo, ti lavi, si lava, ci laviamo, vi lavate, si lavano. Okay? And it's important to note that these pronouns, students will always think that they're subject pronouns and will want to overuse them. Remember, in English, we have to use subject pronouns I, you, he, she, we, you, they, because the verbs don't change, don't have different endings. In Italian, each verb has 6 different endings, one for each person, so therefore the subject pronoun is not necessary. Although students tend to use it in Italian. So remember, generally in Italian, you don't use the subject pronoun. You can just say the verb directly, and the ending tells you who the subject is. So students think mi lavo, that means, okay, I wash, but it actually doesn't mean that, because you remember that if you wanted to express the subject pronoun, it would be io mi lavo, tu ti lavi, lei or lui si lava, noi ci laviamo, voi vi lavate, and loro si lavano. So these are, the subject pronouns are io, tu, lei, lui, noi, voi, and loro. Mi, ti, si, as I mentioned before, are reflexive pronouns. So again, only used when a verb in the infinitive ends with si. Mettersi, it's mettere plus si, mettersi. So mi metto, so again, mi metto, ti metti, si met, and this is an ERE verb, so the ending is not a but e, si mette, ci mettiamo, vi ERE verb, sorry, so it ends with ette, vi mettete, si met, again it's an ERE verb, so ono, si mettono, and then we have the verb vestirsi, which is the verb vestire, plus si, vestirsi, And we have mi vesto, ti vesti, si vest. It's an ERE verb, so sorry, it's an IRE verb, so it ends with e. Si veste, ci vestiamo, vi vestite, si vest. Well, it's an ERE vi vest. It's an IRE versus ite, vi vestite. And then si vest, it's an IRE verb, so it's ono, si vestono. So again, pay attention to the endings for ARE versus IRE and ERE. And that's it as far as the form goes. So a couple of points. Let's begin with point 6, since I mentioned it before. So as you can see, these verbs exist in their regular forms, lavare, but also lavarsi, mettere, but also mettersi. We vestire, but also vestirsi, and so they exist in both reflexive versus non-reflexive. Reflexive versus non-reflexive. So compare mi lavo le mani, I wash my hands, versus lavo i piatti, I wash the dishes. Oh, this is the same example they have. Lavo i piatti, I wash the dishes. So mi lavo le mani versus lavo. So the reflexive form is I wash my hands, or I wash myself the hands, literally. And then lavo i piatti, you're washing not yourself but something else. So you can say lavo. You just say use the non-reflexive form, lavo i piatti. And this same verb actually is interesting because it can mean not only to wash but also to take a shower. I wash my, and whatever the body part is. But if you just say mi lavo without a body part, you can mean I take a shower. Mi lavo. Mi lavo, or I take a, mi lavo can mean I wash my, and then the body part, or I can take a shower. And if you want to negate it, if you want to say the negative, the non goes before the pronoun. Non mi vesto, non metto, and then of course non mi lavo. I will leave it out to avoid confusion. And this point we can set her aside for now. Point number 4. Don't need to worry about it for now. And yeah, I think that's it for reflexives. Yeah, I think that's it for reflexives. Let's go on to the last topic for this capitolo, which is adverbs. Strutture 6.3. fatto. Adverbs. So we remember adjectives they modify nouns. So for example, il ragazzo bello. Il ragazzo bello, the cute guy. We have adjectives and then we have adverbs. And adverbs modify verbs, modify adjectives, modify other adverbs. But for now, our focus is on these. Adverbs modify verbs. Now in Italian, they are pretty easy to form. You take the feminine form of the adjective, the feminine singular. Again, making links, the feminine singular, and you add the suffix mente. You take the feminine singular and you add the suffix mente, which is the equivalent of ly in English. So we can use the same example as in here. So for example, you have the adjective sincero. To form it into an adverb, you need, of course, the feminine singular form. So it would be go to sincera, and then you add the suffix mente, which gets you to sinceramente, and that's your adverb. And it's as easy as that. Let's see. So that's for adjectives ending in O. We have, of course, common adjectives that end in E. So, for example, veloce. And you remember that these don't have a feminine form. They have just singular or plural, so they just stay with veloce, mente, veloce, velocemente. So you just add the mente suffix directly to the adjective veloce, velocemente. And it's as simple as that, except two important exceptions. When an adjective, when an ERE adjective ends in re, or when it ends in le, you will drop the E. So for example, the adjective regolare and the adjective gentile. It's not regolaremente, it's not gentilemente, um, it's it's um, regolarmente and gentilmente. So what happens is that we lose the E. Let's see. We eliminate, well, that doesn't really help that much, but we lose the E, so maybe that's the best way to convey it. Or maybe this way. So we lose the E, and we just add the suffix mente. Regolarmente, there we go, that makes it clear. Regolarmente and gentilmente. And that's about it. Simple as that. Now syntax, they follow directly the verb. So verb, so we have subject plus verb plus adverb. So for example, il professore parla velocemente. Il professore parla velocemente. The professor speaks quickly or fast. We have il professore, which is the subject, parla, which is the verb, and of course velocemente, which is the adverb. So the adverb goes right immediately after the verb. It modifies. Parla velocemente. And that's essentially what adverbs are and how they work in Italian. You already know many of them actually, because adverbs include expressions of time expressions. Let's put them expressions of time, frequency. There's lots of examples. These are listed under point 4. We have domani, ieri, oggi, non mai, ogni tanto, presto, sempre, spesso, tardi, tutti I giorni. The most important part about these, so these are points 4 through 7 deal with these. Expressions of times and frequency. There's some that, like regular adverbs in mente, have to be immediately after the verb. And those are, most importantly, non arrivo mai in ritardo. I never arrive late. So non mai is always non plus the verb plus mai. Non arrivo mai in ritardo. Then we have verb plus sempre or plus spesso, often. Arrivo spesso in ritardo. Sometimes I arrive late, or not sometimes, often I arrive late. Arrivo spesso in ritardo. Or also the expression sempre, the adverb sempre. Arrivo sempre in ritardo. I always arrive late. So never, always, and often. These are adverbs that always follow the verb when we're talking about expressions of time and frequency. All the others are usually at the end of the sentence. So for example, arrivo in ritardo tutti I giorni. I arrive late every day. Do you think that makes it clearer? Yeah, okay. Arrivo in ritardo tutti I giorni. Very important that I should not forget, so let's go back. The verbs, the adjectives buono and cattivo, good and bad. Have irregular adverbial forms. So buono becomes bene. Cattivo becomes male, and you've already encountered bene and male when you're talking about how someone is doing. So buono versus bene, buono adjective versus bene adverb, cattivo adjective versus male adverb. And so you need to be careful when you use these. For example, Laura è una buona studentessa. Parla bene tante lingue. So Laura is a good student. Or actually, yeah. Laura is a good student. So this is an adjective, describes a student, but also Laura. Parla bene tante lingue. She speaks many languages well. So as you can see also in English, good has an irregular adverbial form. So good versus well, bad versus, no, bad doesn't, okay. But good does, okay. And that's about it for adverbs. So yes, I hope all things are going well. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you need help with anything. Now that I am not in Rome because the program has concluded, I have a lot more flexibility to meet with you or to help in any way I can. So please reach out. Don't hesitate to reach out, especially as we approach the end of the term and as we approach the final exams, the oral and written final exams. So reach out if you need anything. Otherwise, have a good weekend, buon weekend, and I will see you in a couple of weeks for your oral exams. Ciao!